Hello, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Delaware County Republican Party podcast, Street Beat. I'm Dann Cuellar, your host, and after over 3 decades as a television journalist in the Philadelphia region, I am thrilled to embark on this new journey with all of you. Our goal with this podcast is to create a platform where we can engage with our community and discuss the issues that matter most to you, delve into topics that shape our lives and our future. And with us now is the brainchild behind the podcast, the chairman of the Republican Party in Delaware County, Mr. Frank Agovino. He has been a fixture in the landscape of politics here in Delaware County for over 3 decades. His professional and community involvement is extensive and multifaceted. Agovino is a businessman and entrepreneur whose companies employ more than 60 people in Delaware County. He was honored as the Delaware County Chamber of Commerce's Entrepreneur of the Year in 2022. His dedication to his community is evidenced through his over 15 years of service as a school director for Springfield School District, where he played a significant role in the approval and planning of a new state-of-the-art high school. Additionally, Agovino worked for 13 years at Delaware County Community College as an executive director in its Workforce Development Division. He has been actively involved with many boards, including the Delaware County Intermediate Unit, Delaware County Technical Education Board, YMCA of Eastern Delaware County, Manufacturers Alliance of Delaware and Chester counties, and the Delaware County Chamber of Commerce. He is also the treasurer of the New Avenue Foundation, NAF, which provides support for people with disabilities, including connecting them with employment opportunities. Agovino resides in Springfield with his wife, Laura, who is also a small business owner, and their daughter, Alexa. I could go on, but I think you get the picture. Folks, please welcome Mr. Frank Agovino. Frank, why don't you tell us why you wanted to do this podcast for the people of Delaware County? The first of its kind.
Yes. Dan's about dialogue for the local Republican Party. It's so important to talk to people and to see what they're thinking. It's also really, really important to reach out to new voters in new ways. And podcast listeners and viewers tend to be younger, and we're certainly trying to get more young people involved with our everyday endeavors.
And Frank, for the longest time, you've been in politics for over 3 decades. There's always been that stigma among some people that decisions are made in smoky back rooms, and that doesn't really matter what people really think. Do you think a venue like this, a podcast like this, can help change that perspective, especially among young voters who are just now coming into the picture?
Yeah, it only matters what people think. And these days, it's so nuanced, right? There's so many complexities in the world that we live in. And to be able to drill down and talk to people and understand them is really, really key to our success. And you mentioned the word change, right? And it's time to do some things differently, to reach people in different ways and get them involved in different ways. And we thought this would be a great forum to do that.
For the longest time, and even across the country, it's always been done basically the same way. And people think this way, and they go to these meetings, or they go to venues where they all drink cocktails and have a nice banquet room. What was it that told you, you know what? We have to do more. We have to reach everyone, the people who cannot afford to go to venues like that because they're so busy in their lives with, whether they're on the job and they're raising kids and going to, kids, playing football or basketball or soccer or anything else. And,
I absolutely agree. And Delaware County is a perfect example of that. We say that Delaware County in so many ways represents America. And people are busy. They're working hard. We have tradesmen, we have teachers, we have police officers and firemen. And these are very, very busy people. And it's very difficult to connect with them to see what they're thinking at times. In the old political world, and it still goes on, and it's still a strong method, is knocking on doors. And that was a way that candidates would be able to tell their tale to voters. But it's becoming increasingly complex. Folks just don't answer their doors as much, and people are so busy. It's just a different environment than it used to be. So we have to have new ways to connect with people and to not only listen to them, but for us to talk to them about who we are. Yeah. Because the Republican Party in the state, in the country, and in the county, there is a stigma. There is a reputation that has occurred over the last few years that we aren't reasonable people, that we aren't common sense people. But the reality is we are. We have a common sense approach. And through this method, we want to talk to people. We don't necessarily there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. We want you to be heard, and we want to understand what you have to say. We just feel like it'll help us connect with voters more effectively.
By the mere fact that you're starting this podcast, it leads me to believe that you were already hearing people, that you already got it, that there's a disconnect there somewhere. We got to do a better job at reaching out to our people, trying to engage the younger people coming into Delaware County to get them to volunteer, to be a part of this effort.
Oh, absolutely. I've been chairman now for just a little bit over a year, and the first year was really was a listening campaign. There's a million things that you want to do, but I've always thought it's best to take a little while to listen to people, to see what makes them tick, and to see what we're doing well and what we're not doing well. And for me, that's what gave birth to this podcast, because we needed to talk to people where they were and in a different way and listen to them. Not everybody agrees on everything 100% of the time, but we just needed to have this opportunity to show them who we were, what's important to us and what's important to them, and find a place where we can get along and move this country along.
Well, we're hoping to talk with you again soon on this podcast. Will you be a guest again?
Anytime.
All right, pal. Frank, we want to thank you so much for being with us here today. Mr. Frank Agovino, everyone. And so we want to hear from you. Your voice matters. Here's just a sample of what we are hearing from residents in Delaware County. I'm Dann Cuellar, formerly with 6ABC. I'm now an independent journalist. The president is speaking tonight in the State of the Union address. Wanted to know what issues are important to you right now that you'd like to hear addressed.
Economy. Just every day living and on fixed income. I work part-time. I retired, and I'm concerned about the economy.
Get out of Palestine. So I'll start to big his public policy, and certainly don't support the Russians like the other candidate is. Mm-hmm. I guess I'm always interested in the same thing, I support his social policies. We got to do something about guns. That's number one. Killing kids, on the street.
For me, definitely a school choice. At the moment, I think it's really critical for us to be able to have freedom, for our children to be able to be in places that are in alignment with our core values as family members. So,
honestly, reproductive rights, that's something I'm very passionate about.
Well, to me, Palestinians, I would say that would probably be my number one.
Government acting like adults. I mean, the cooperation is non-existent. That's a very bad reflection on them and us. So, it would be nice if they'd start to, everybody's saying the economy's bad. The economy's respectable. It's not the economy. The border's important. What's going on in Europe is important. The Middle East is important. And, they're fading. I mean, if I'm from another country looking at us, I'm very puzzled as to what's going on.
Well, I'd like us to be more respectful to each other, whatever our opinions are.
You mean what's going on in Washington right now?
Yeah, I mean the House and the Senate not being able to agree on anything.
Just the small business right now. We need all the help we can get. So I'm Kyle Lefkoff of Scoop Homemade Ice Cream and Media, and I think the small businesses need some love right now. So,
well, I'm satisfied with how Biden is handling the economy. So I want him to keep doing what he's doing. I would be in favor of increased taxation of the upper 1%, which I think Biden also favors. And I'm in favor of most of his policies, including the increased efforts to have Medicare negotiate drug prices. So I'm pretty satisfied, to be honest with you.
Inflation mainly, which I don't think the president has that much to do with the economy that much.
We have always disagreed and have different opinions, but it's okay to disagree and still get along and respect each other. And our President Biden is very good at that. He's a respectful man. He gets things done. He knows about the common people. He addresses the issues of the common people. And he loves everybody, and he wants to get along with everybody. He has always done that, and he will continue to do that. We do not get that from the other side.
So whether it's about local policies, what's going on across the nation, or just your daily lives, we want to hear from you, and you can do so by emailing us at podcast@DelawareCountyGOP.com. Coming up on Street Beat, a conversation with noted author and columnist Salena Zito. Welcome back to Street Beat, the official podcast of the Delaware County Republican Party. Glad you could join us for the inaugural episode. Our next guest is an acclaimed columnist and best-selling author. She's a prominent figure known for her insightful commentary on American politics and culture. She has written various opinion pieces that offer compelling perspectives on a range of topics. Her work often delves into the dynamics within the Republican Party, including discussions on the impact of MAGA insurgencies on local Republican groups. Additionally, she has covered stories about political figures like Nikki Haley, portraying them in a unique light. Zito's writing style is characterized by storytelling and providing in-depth analysis of American culture and politics. Her contributions to platforms like the Glenn Beck program showcase her ability to engage audiences with her quick wit and candid opinions. Folks, would you please welcome Salena Zito. Salena, I've been a big fan of yours over the years, many years of your work going all over the country and the regions and exploring what people is on their minds. Some of your notable works and articles include Middle America is Dying. This piece delves into the challenges faced by Middle America, offering insights into the struggles and changes affecting this region. Can you elaborate on that? What did you find?
Well, that story came out of Weirton, West Virginia, which is basically on the border of Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. And the Weirton Works plant was a steel plant that not that long ago employed about 15,000 people. 2.5 weeks ago, the last 900 people that were left were given their marching orders. The plant closed. Weirton is already on its knees, is really struggling, having a hard time. When a plant closes, it's not just the people that are impacted by the plant. There's at least 7 jobs associated with each one job in the plant. And so we're looking at people not just that supply the widgets or, support the steel mill, with supplies that the mill might need. It's also barbershops, beauty salons, mom and pop grocery stores. And then it gets into the tax base. So it impacts the school district, the roads, the bridges. And it also impacts the churches and the fraternal organizations. Those things all start to fall apart because people have to move away for a job. And this is something that has been happening over and over again. And what is really stunning to me is that these were the kinds of voters that Democrats had always would show up when a plant was threatened to be closed and say, "Hey, I have your back." And they haven't been doing that. They've moved more towards the social justice organizations as opposed to the labor organizations. And Republicans inherited these voters as Democrats started to shed them. And so the Republicans still don't know how to, they want to help them, they want to do the right things, but they still don't know how to talk to these voters in a meaningful way. So in a lot of ways, these people that live in places like Weirton are the victims of politics. The reason that plant closed down was because of something that the Biden administration did with a tariff. They decided to not make it an even playing field with China. This is the problem in our country, and stories that aren't written about in a meaningful way by the national press, oftentimes because they just don't know or understand someone that lives in places like that.
And I know someone like you has been really following the advent of artificial intelligence and how this could impact the employment opportunities in America, and not just in our region, but across the country and the world as a whole. How can that's going to impact everybody when you see machines taking over people's jobs?
So automation or technology has been taking jobs away since the 1920s, right? And I think the false moment in our country was World War II. because all of a sudden we needed to produce things for the war effort, and that took up several years. And then when all the GIs came back, Eisenhower was the president, and his decision was to let's build infrastructure, let's build roads, let's build the superhighways, and then they had to build the houses to support it. So that false employment continued through the late 60s, early 70s. And then that's when manufacturing started to crumble. First because of trade, but now today more so because of that automation and technology that first started taking jobs away in the 20s.
And it just continues. I mean, we saw what happened after the shutdown of the pipelines in America and how many plants closed down, all these jobs that were lost, and nobody paid attention. It was like,
No,
who
I went out
cares?
to when they shut the pipeline down, 2 days after Biden made his announcement in January of 2021. The way I cover American politics is I don't fly and I don't take the turnpike or interstates. I only take back roads. And why I do that is it gives me an insight as to how communities are changing, how communities are impacted positively, but also negatively. As I drove into Delco today, it's a bustling place. It is a place that has a lot of activity going on. But there are other counties in our state that are really, really sort of suffering. And so that's sort of going to be the tension in the upcoming presidential, but also U.S. Senate races in our state in come November.
One of your other notable works, Everyone's Tired of Politics. Here you explore the theme of political fatigue, highlighting the weariness felt by many individuals amidst the political landscape. Salena, I don't think I have ever seen this country as fractured as it is today.
It is really fractured. There have been other times when we've been more fractured. The American Civil War would certainly be a time where we were very fractured. But also, I lived through the 60s and 70s. We weren't doing all that hot then either. We had a lot of problems. Well, the problem that makes it on our doorstep every day is technology. We hear stories that we would have never even heard, at least in the robust amount that we hear every day, and we have a hard time keeping up with it. And everyone is tired of politics, and I part of that is that the things that we buy, the schools that we send our kids off to school, the music that we listen to, the movies that we watch, are all sort of saturated with politics as well. And if we want to go on YouTube, we're going to get political ad. If we want to go online, then we're going to get overwhelmed by politics. And and for people that tend to be down the middle, sort of not which way or the other, they are more often than not going to see something that's left of center, that's something that they aren't exactly want to hear. So it adds to the anguish and agony that we feel. And also we're going to see Donald Trump and Joe Biden again. And we're reliving 2020 again. And that is arguably the worst year of every person in this country's life. Somebody lost someone, they lost a friend, they lost a job, they lost a family member. Everyone's life distinctly changed on that day. There was no one left unchanged. And in the center of that was a race between Trump and Biden. Now, the good thing is we have amnesia. It's sort of like women, who have multiple births. Like, why would you go back and do that? Well, because your brain shuts some of that stuff down. And so people, Trump right now, that's going to change 1,000 times between now and November. Trump right now is ahead in the polls. People have amnesia. They forgot why they were annoyed with him 4 years ago. Joe Biden, everyone was talking recently about what a great State of the Union address Joe Biden gave last year. People have amnesia. They forgot about that a day after because we're so filled with politics in everything of every day of our lives.
You're going to be giving the keynote speech tonight at the Delaware County Republican Chairman's annual banquet. Can you give us some highlights of your speech tonight?
I'm going to talk about understanding why our coalitions changed in American politics and why we are where we are. Because a lot of the tenets of what was in the Democratic Party has moved over to the Republican Party, and parts of the Republican Party are moving over to the Democratic Party. But people think it's politics that changed it. It's not. As I mentioned before, it's our cultural curators. It is the people that run our corporations and our media and our academia and our large institutions. They're not bad people. However, their decision making is made within the geography of the super zip codes they live in, as opposed to the people that will that buy their products. Case in point, Budweiser.
Yes.
Everyone thinks people got mad because they used a trans person for the ad with Budweiser. That had nothing to do with it. It had everything to do with the fact that people were like, don't put politics in our beer. We just want to have a beer. But, and part of Budweiser's problem is they used to be located in St. Louis, the center of the country. Well, that's all farmed out to California and Los Angeles and all that sort of media, and the decision making is done. Well, people in LA and New York, they rarely have many things in common with the guy or the girl that drinks Bud Light on a regular basis. And so all of our cultural curators, even our government, they're located in the super zip codes of wealth and power. And they're so wildly disconnected from the people who buy their products or sit in their seats if it's a Hollywood movie. And that is what has caused, those pressures have caused our realignment, not really politics.
What a pleasure it's been to have you with us tonight.
Thank you.
I hope you come back.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, as we go into break, we have a message from Republican Senatorial candidate Dave McCormick, who's taken on longtime incumbent Bob Casey. Here now is Dave McCormick.
Hi, it's Dave McCormick. I'm sorry I can't be with you tonight in Delaware County. I would have loved to be there, and I want to thank your chairman, Frank Agovino, for his very warm invitation. But unfortunately, I'm out on the road campaigning. But the thing I did want to say is how excited I am to be the nominee for the United States Senate and to win this seat back for Pennsylvania. I'm running for the office because I deeply believe the country is going in a dangerous direction. We're in decline, and we need strong leadership to take our country back and get it moving in the right direction. You see the decline everywhere. Economically, with 60% of Pennsylvanians living paycheck to paycheck, record high debt, $34 trillion, record high inflation. Prices have gone up 17%, and real wages for most people have gone up by a lot less than that. You see it in the rampant border where national security threat is growing. 160 people came across the border who were on the terrorist watch list. A fentanyl crisis that comes from the border with 5,000 deaths last year in Pennsylvania alone. We see it in crime. In Philadelphia and across our great Commonwealth, where the murder rate's at an all-time high, and Soros-based prosecutors like Larry Krasner are putting dangerous felons on the street. We are in trouble. And finally, we see it in spiritual decline. We see it with these kids marching on campus. They don't know the difference between right and wrong. And you say, how could this happen? And then you watch those testimonies from those 3 college presidents, and you say, that's how it happened. The lack of moral leadership. That's why we need new leadership in the Senate. My opponent, Senator Bob Casey, has been around for 30 years in statewide public office, 18 years in the Senate, and he really hasn't done anything at all. In the most consequential state in our country, the Commonwealth, which is the 6th largest economy, the Commonwealth where our country was created, the battleground state that will determine the presidency, we have the least consequential senator. But a guy who's voted 98% of the time with Joe Biden, 98% of the time. So when you see record high inflation due to excessive spending, you can thank Bob Casey. When you see a wide open border and the efforts to stop building a border wall and to stop the crisis at the border, you can thank Bob Casey. When you see crime, you can thank Bob Casey for his efforts and support of groups that wish to defund the police. And when you see what's happening around the world and the terrible terrorism underwritten by Iran in the Middle East, you can thank Bob Casey. That was the deciding vote on the Iran deal back in 2015. And he supported the appeasement of Iran ever since. We need new leadership. We need common sense leadership. It's common sense to secure our border and protect our citizens. It's common sense that we can't spend trillions of dollars and not expect our children to suffer from. And it's common sense that we secure streets, secure communities where businesses and families can prosper. It's common sense that America needs to be strong in the world, an exceptional country, and that we'll get peace through strength. That's why I'm running for the Senate. That's why I'm going to beat Bob Casey. That's why I need your support. We need your support across the ticket. This is this is the most important election of your lifetime. I know politicians have said that every time they've come in front of you, but think about it. Think about one election in your lifetime that was more important than this one. There isn't one. The stakes are so high. Thank you for all you're doing to help Pennsylvania. Thank you for all you're doing to save our country. Thank you for all you're doing to support me. I'm happy to be fighting the fight with all of you.
Welcome back to Street Beat, the inaugural podcast of the Delaware County Republican Party. Remember, we'd like to hear your thoughts and comments, and why don't you get on the mailing list? You can do so by going to podcast@DelawareCountyGOP.com. Now, as we head into the Pennsylvania primary election on April 23rd and the November 5th general election, I know there are a lot of questions about the voting laws and regulations post the COVID pandemic. When can we vote, where to vote, mail-in ballots, etc. And with us now to break some of that down is Jared Laird with the Delaware County GOP. Welcome, Jared.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Jared, I think the biggest concern right now among voters who are accustomed to voting in person on Election Day is, can they trust mail-in voting?
I think that they can. In order to apply for a mail-in ballot, you either have to provide your driver's license number or your social security number. So there's a stopgap, if you will, to ensure that everybody that's requesting a ballot is an actual person, is eligible to request the ballot, and has not already requested one. So if you go on, request it, forget, go and request it again, it'll say, denied, you've already requested a ballot.
I see. Now, how can they be assured that their vote got to where it needed and that it will be counted if they go? Because a lot of people talk to me and they say, I don't know that my mail-in vote is actually going to get to where it needs to get and that they're going to count it. How can they be assured of that?
So if you have an email address and you provide that email address when you request your absentee or mail-in ballot, what they'll be able to do, the Department of State can send you an email to let you know your application's been processed, your ballot is on the way, your ballot's been received, and your vote's been tallied.
How long does that usually take? Because you know how people are sitting at home on pins and needles wondering, I wonder if my mail-in vote got in.
It all kind of depends when you mail it. If you mail it, say, right before a big holiday or something, there may be a little more of a delay than if you mail it on a Monday. So what we try to do is tell everybody, request your ballot early, complete it early, and return it early. That way you're guaranteed to have it there before the deadline, no questions.
Which leads me to my next question. How can people get their mail-in ballot?
If you go to vote.pa.gov/apply mail ballot, all one word there, you'll be able to go to the online application. You'll be able to fill it out. It'll ask you a couple questions. And then once you complete that application, your ballot will be mailed out to you.
Jared, how soon can people get their mail-in ballot?
People can begin requesting them now. I'm not 100% sure as to when the county's going to start mailing them out. I would imagine late March to early April. There's challenges. They have to finalize the ballot, the placement of all the candidates, get them printed, and then mail them all out. But I would say people can start requesting them now. The last day that they can request one for the primary is April 16th at 5 p.m. That's the deadline for your application to be received.
Where should they mail their ballot, or can they drop it off somewhere, and how safe is that?
So I'll start with that. First, there are a number of drop boxes in Delaware County. I know the number, it tends to fluctuate because each municipality will determine whether or not they want to keep the drop box. All the drop boxes are monitored via a camera that's in place on the drop box, and that footage is monitored by the Park Police, which are headquartered at the courthouse. So people can return a ballot to a drop box there. There's also a drop box at the courthouse and Media, or they can put it in the mailbox. But I would say if you get to like the week before the election, you probably want to go to a drop box and not take a chance on mailing it.
Now, we talked briefly about voter ID. You mentioned driver's license. What other kind of voter IDs can people use in Pennsylvania, in Delaware County?
Yes. So for Pennsylvania, if you're a first-time voter, meaning if you just turned 18 and just registered, or if you recently moved to a new place and are voting at that polling place for the first time, you will be asked to show identification. So you can either provide photo or non-photo ID. Photo ID would be a driver's license, a state-issued ID, an armed forces ID, or a passport, things like that. And then a non-photo ID would be your voter registration card, a firearms permit, a utility bill, a paycheck, something that has your name and your address on it.
Can you answer this question? Because I know this question is going to go up. People say, this state ID thing, can anyone just go and say, I want one? Or is there a process, like you have to prove that you're a citizen of the United States?
You do have to prove
Tell us about that.
You have to prove that you are who you say you are, and that's how you get an ID. It's similar to if you've gone to the DMV to get a driver's license. There's paperwork and whatnot that you have to fill out before you get your ID. You don't just say, hey, I'm Dann Cuellar, give me an ID, and there you go. You have to prove that you actually are Dann Cuellar.
And that you're a citizen, and that you have a birth certificate,
and
et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, and that you're eligible to vote.
Okay, well, that's good information. Is there anything else you want to cover that we didn't cover?
I would just say if anybody out there thinks there's, it's not 100% guarantee that you can vote in person on either the primary, which is April 23rd, or the general election, which
on November 5th.
November 5th. Request an absentee or mail-in ballot. Everybody needs to vote. At this point, it doesn't matter how you vote. It matters that you vote.
Jared Laird with Delaware County GOP. Thank you for being with us.
It's been a pleasure.
Well, folks, that's it for this inaugural edition of Street Beat, the official podcast of the Delaware County Republican Party. We really would like to hear your thoughts, and you could do so at podcast@DelawareCountyGOP.com. Thank you for tuning in, and remember, your voices shape this podcast. Thank you.